This time on the Families Matter Most podcast.
It took someone saying, you don't have to endure this abuse and you can start over.
Every time Jen Dean speaks, I can see hope, knowledge, expertise, wisdom, and love.
When Jen Dean speaks about parenting, we make sure that we are there to listen because we know we will get valuable advice.
Families Matter Most with Jen Dean.
She doesn't just give skills for us to be better parents, but she teaches us how to reach our children's hearts. And at the end of the day, that's what truly matters.
On this episode of the Families Matter Most podcast, we have a guest who's starting a new nonprofit initiative in Regina that is so desperately needed to help families escaping violence. Lisa Williams, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Shelter Movers is a new nonprofit in Regina, but it's not new to Canada. Now, Lisa, you are the director of this chapter of Shelter Movers. Tell us about what it is, what it's doing in the rest of Canada, and why it's coming here.
Perfect. Thank you for having me. So Shelter Movers is moving into Regina as its 11th chapter nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's a response to the need for an early intervention service for women and their children fleeing domestic violence. Shelter Movers started in 2016 in Toronto with one man who, his name is Mark Haljakan, and he saw the need and he wanted to contribute to his community. And he thought, what can I do? How can I help? He was on parental leave with their daughter. And, he was a man in a basement who would a couple times a week grab a truck and some friends and help women flee violence. And with a business mind and background, he thought, how can I scale this up? Who else can I help? And this surely cannot be happening just in Toronto. So.
Absolutely. Now let's walk through without this service. What might it look like for typically a woman with children who is living in domestic violence, intimate partner abuse? What would it look like for them without a service like this?
So without the service, and what is currently happening in Saskatchewan is that women are, surviving abuse in their homes. One of the things we know is that the home is the most violent place for a woman. I think a lot of the misconception is that, the streets are the most violent, and it's not necessarily so true. We know in Saskatchewan that intimate partner violence and family violence are double the national average. And that means that this violence is happening in the home. And so what it looks like is a lot of organizations and charities are either doing these moves off the side of their desk.
Like volunteering on the weekend.
Right. Finding out if Craig in HR in accounting has a truck. Okay, let's use his truck. Who else can, which other staff can help out and make this move happen? And so that's not typically part of their service model because that's huge overhead, a lot of risk. It's not happening in a coordinated way, but they're doing their best because they see the violence happening and they want to help, because what they know is that when a woman attempts to leave is the most violent time in an abusive relationship. It is the time when an abuser panics and most usually attempts to, a violent action on the women and their children. So we know that women are staying because it's very scary to leave.
Yes.
We know women are going to the streets because the shelters are full or there's a long wait list. For example, at Sophia House, which is our second stage shelter, the wait list is huge. And we do have emergency shelters. But again, those have some constraints, like a 2-bag limit, for example. They do have some time constraints because they do want to help a lot of people.
Right.
So the need is huge. The need is there. And what we do is we offer free moving and free storage services. That is so important because, as I said, so many women are leaving in the shadows of the night with whatever they can carry. A lot of the shelters have a 2-bag limit. And so if you can imagine having to choose right now what you're taking,
Yeah.
And so if your listeners are imagining what a woman is going through thinking of leaving, one of the barriers is where's all my stuff going to go? Am I going to be able to take my daughter's favorite Squishmallows collection?
Yeah.
Can I take, her bunk bed? The answer is usually no. And so what we know about children is that when they leave violence and they have some of these things, when they're able to take their comfort items and those items that reflect stability, then the outcome for them is a lot more positive in such a traumatic situation.
April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And of course, we wish this wasn't an issue that even needed discussion, but something like that. I still get my stuff. We still have our furniture. That makes a difference for kids.
We know that exposure to violence creates so many issues in a child's development. And so, issues such as anger, increased anxiety, and then down the road, we know that victims of abuse are likely to be victims in the future and abusers as well. And so early intervention to getting kids away from violence is huge for their development and for us as a society. And to be able to take their things, you can imagine a mother saying to her child, we're leaving. I can't tell you why. Or maybe she can say why. Even just the act of leaving is so traumatic on a child. To say, go up to your room and pick 2 things that you like.
Yeah.
I mean, it just adds to the emotional damage that's happening. So what we do is we come in and our volunteers will get down on their hands and knees and scoop out the teddy bears from under the bed and, gently pack up the earrings that grandma gave her 4-year-old and, grab that favorite lamp and that artwork. That's so important because wherever they're going, those items feel like home and they smell like home. And we know that when children, smell the familiar smell of mom and their siblings, that can really make a situation less traumatic.
So we know that Shelter Movers is helpful for kids. I'm thinking of a mom who's trying to wrap her brain around the fear, the uncertainty of what would I even do? I feel like it just would seem like so many hoops to jump through of, what about school for my kids and how am I going to live and where am I going to sleep and what about all my stuff and then bills and then I feel like it just becomes so overwhelming that your brain just shuts down and says, no, I'll just stay here. So now a partner like Shelter Movers is willing to come in and move your stuff, but also I think provide bodies safety. As you mentioned, when a woman is leaving, if the abuser finds out, there's often increased violence. So just knowing that there will be other people there for support. It's not going to be something you have to sneak and do in 10 minutes in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. I think that makes a difference too, that they're not alone. They make this call, the resource connects with you, and you set it up, and they're not alone after that.
We do the one thing. We move and we store their items. But leaving abuse has so many other implications to their lives. We want to make sure that they have that wraparound support. I heard our founder say once that we always want to see our clients twice. We want to make sure we're there for her when she's in that crisis moment. It's really nice to be able to say, let's go get your stuff and we're moving you into stable housing and we're moving you into your new home, and that feels good. We provide the mechanism for it, but Shelter Movers really provides giving back empowerment and control. Our moves are done in such a organized way that all the power's on her. She decides when to move, what to take. We have partners available on the move that will help with pets. Wow. That will help with any translation services we need. And so bringing this out of the shadows and into the light, giving her her power back, she has control over the whole move and the whole situation. So I think that's what draws me to Shelter Movers is this uplifting of women and bringing this out of the shadows.
Lisa, not only are you the director of this nonprofit, but you've lived some of this yourself. Would you share some of your story?
Yes, of course. So when I experienced violence 20 years ago as a young woman, I was in a city that didn't have a lot of shelters, didn't have shelter movers. And when I was experiencing violence, it came on slow because that's typically how abuse comes on in a relationship. It's about coercion, it's about isolation, and that experience slowly over time. And when I was, noticing that my partner was a different person, finally ready to leave, he threatened to kill me on the night that I was going to leave because I made my intentions known that I was going to leave. And I left with the clothes on my back into the safety of some friends. And we tried going back for my things. And every time he blocked it, he made excuses. He now had the control over the finances and of my physical property.
Right.
So I felt like I was just constantly battling with my abuser while trying to heal. And so it's really difficult. I started over. I drove back to Regina with not much in my car. And I started over, and I'm just recovering from the economic impact of my abuse story. Because imagine having to buy all new clothes, buy a couch. I had a job, so I was able to, pay rent, but, sleeping on the floor until I can buy a bed.
Right. And oftentimes people that have escaped abuse, their credit gets wrecked because your name is on bills that don't get paid. And this is often intentional to try and ruin your life.
Yeah.
So I believe it, the economic punishment that you've had to pay. Now, what if there had been something like Shelter Movers? What if that existed for you?
It would have felt so empowering to have the control of going back to that home in the moment and taking back my personal items that had significant emotional value to me.
Yes.
My grandparents' letter to me, the artwork that my brother made me for my 17th birthday. Those things are gone, and I don't know where they are now. And so if I would have had those, it would have felt like I had the power. And in the moment, I would have felt like I had a team behind me to say, we got you.
Yes.
We are here for you. You go get it, girl. And
yes.
We'll stand here and help you pack the boxes, and nothing can hurt you. And that force of having an organized move, a timeline where they're following, the police arrive here, we pack the boxes here. It's coordinated and it feels safe and it feels comfortable. And I certainly would not have had to rack up my own credit card and start a new credit card and line of credit, buying new furniture, buying new clothes, buying new makeup, all of these things you don't think about because they're already in your home.
Yes.
But to buy a new TV on credit.
Right. So to think, well, it's just a letter, it's just some artwork, but that's all you had.
Yeah.
So it's even more important to you. Like those were the significant items that you were holding on to that you didn't get to keep. I'm so sorry.
Oh, thanks. It's good thing I have most of my emotional attachment to items. I have, replenished with new memories. So
right.
That is in the past, and that's a different chapter. So, but the economic impact of me having to, buy all new things is that like I said, I just recovered, and that was 20 years ago. So,
right.
Yeah.
And now you're in a place to help others.
Yeah, and I think that's what drew me to this work, was that in about 2020, I started on the board of directors of Sophia House because I was finally ready to have space in my life to tell this story and to give back to women who had a experience with violence that I could help and that I knew what they were going through. You can't help others until you're helping yourself.
Yes.
So it took a long time of mental kind of strengthening. And so I started with Sophia House, their board of directors, and then I worked with Regina Sexual Assault Center and Regina Open Door Society. And I I realized quickly that being in front of a woman and looking in her eyes who's experiencing violence, I wanted to walk alongside her and I wanted to do whatever I could. And when Shelter Movers came up, I was thrilled, and I feel like this organization is home to me already.
Now, I know we need to be respectful of privacy, and of course, but is there a woman that comes to mind, the kind of woman that we are here to help?
Back when I was working for Sophia House and Regina Open Door at the same time, I had a friend contact me because of the intersection of that. They knew a woman was experiencing violence who was a newcomer. And that relationship comes with a real different set of barriers when you are immigrating to a new place with your abuser.
Yes, this is someone new to Canada.
Right.
So a brand new culture.
Yep.
Perhaps a language barrier.
Exactly. They also are economically bound to their partner.
Yes.
Even more so than we are. There's also challenges with their immigration status. They are on that application with their partner.
Yes.
And a lot of times, their partner, if it's a man, is the primary economic caregiver of the household. So there are so many issues that come along with hesitating of leaving violence for a newcomer woman. The dynamic there is interesting because a lot of times when an immigrant household is getting ready to move to Canada, they think, okay, well, we both can't take English lessons at the same time. Since the man is going to be the one doing the job and out in the community, let's get his language lessons done first, so that he can do the job in the and provide for the family. So the woman's language skills come last. And so, unfortunately, that gives her hesitation and non-confidence around even talking about violence. One hesitation that newcomer women have might be that they don't know where their stuff is going to go. The man is the one who usually talks to the school.
Yeah.
And so I had a friend who said that they had a newcomer neighbor and that she could hear the violence happening and she could see the violence happening. And they had just moved in. And so she was desperate for any way to help this woman because she had tried to befriend her. And the woman definitely, declined it. One of the control techniques of abusers is isolation. And so that abuser, was like, don't talk to that woman. We don't know her. She's not in our community. I don't want my kids playing with her. And so because isolation keeps from talking about it. And so my friend said, can you come talk to this woman about getting away from abuse? And I thought that's really tough because not only are they a stranger, but they are they're a stranger to me. And so for someone to just walk in and say,
yes,
I think you're being abused is extremely tough. So what happened was I did come to that woman's space and I was visiting with my friend. And our kids were all playing in the front yard. And my friend opened up the conversation because there was a little bit of trust there. She said, this is my friend Lisa. This is her kids. And they were starting to play together. And once she was relaxed, my friend said, I just want to make sure that you're okay because I hear some things. I'll be completely honest with you. I hear some things and I feel like you might not be okay. And the woman started crying and she said, yes, I don't know how to leave and I don't think I can. The child came up and the child was, very aware of the abuse and the child was also being abused. And she said, I could never survive without him. He has everything. And I said, you can. You can. And the child walked up and said, my mom is helpless. And he had better language skills because he's in the school system.
Yes.
And he said, my mom can't. She can't. And I said, she can. She is so powerful. And the child looked at the mother and they both started crying. And I was just so overwhelmed that in that moment, he saw his mother in a different way. And he saw his mother as powerful. And I said, when you're ready, I'm here for you. And they looked at each other and they said, we're ready now. And so they had already been thinking about this. They had no resources. They said, we're ready now. Can you call the cops now? And I said, sure. So we helped. And within an hour, she was gone. And so that is rare. And that is when many stars align, when a woman is ready.
Yes.
But we know that it takes so much to get her ready. And she knew she was abandoning all of her items.
She knew that.
She knew that. And because there's no service like Shelter Movers in Regina to offer her,
Yes.
We guided her to a shelter, and we guided her and her child to a shelter. And we connected her and wrapped her around with services that we know of in Regina. And so she left her items, and when they looked at each other and they thought, this is possible, it so emotional. They looked at each other in a different way, like a new life is on the horizon. And it took someone saying, you don't have to endure this abuse, and you can start over. And so I think it just means really paying attention to folks, being there consistently. Remember that abusers thrive in isolation. So if you know someone who you suspect is experiencing abuse, pay attention. Watch for those signs, whether it be withdrawal of, they don't show up to their book club as often. They may even have physical signs of abuse. They may be suffering depression, have substance abuse. To cope with that, really pay attention, be a friend, be consistent, because remember, they are battling in their heads whether to leave and whether they have enough support, and they don't know who to trust. Even if you don't agree with that they're staying, remember it is a huge, huge obstacle to leave abuse. And if you're there consistently, they can come to you if you show that you're showing up.
I love that you said, Lisa, when you're ready, call me. Thinking back to my past and some of, an abusive relationship I was in, it felt, there was shame around it. It felt like if I told anyone and stayed, I could never bring it up with them again because I was ashamed that I stayed. I was ashamed it was happening, and I was also ashamed that I stayed. So to say, when you're ready, we will help you.
Yeah.
I think is really empowering.
One of the things that we do with our volunteers is make sure we encourage them not to speak too positively or too negatively to the survivor, about their actions on that day, because we know that survivors will go back to their abuser up to 5-6 times in their life. Again, because there's so many barriers and the psychological independence of abuse in relationships. And so we make sure that our volunteers don't say good for you, good for leaving, because we want her to feel no shame if she needs to call us again.
So you are looking for volunteers. I'm guessing you're also looking for donations.
Yeah.
Because this all takes money to store and to, of course, run the vehicles, get the trucks going, all of that. But volunteers, boots on the ground, you need people that are willing to help with moves. But what other kind of volunteers are you looking for?
What we need is, yes, of course, strong folks to move a bed and a couch, but we also need folks to do administrative works like coordinating the move. Lead movers, which are usually female, just because a male presence can re-traumatize. Of course, men are part of our moving teams. This is a service where men feel that they can be involved and give back to a cause that isn't just a female cause. It's a male cause as well, right?
Yes.
We do have a lot of men who are allies and who are involved. So we're looking for folks who, are able to give a few hours a week or a month in helping us coordinate the moves, come up with, the agenda for the day that really organizes, pinpoints, and has a timeline of what that woman wants and how she wants to move, because this move is all up to her. So that would look like an intake counselor and a move coordinator working with her, and that referral service to say, okay, you have 2 dogs. You might speak another language. We need that interpreter there. So we will do all those pieces for her. So we'll make sure her dogs get moved or need to be sheltered until she's ready for them. We will make sure the right interpreter is there. And we're taking care of all these pieces behind the scenes. So we need volunteers to do those pieces. And it really isn't a lot of heavy lifting. This is something that a lot of professionals take on for their spare time and can be done over the noon hour and can be done at night and is a couple hours a week to a couple hours a month. And it really is leaving such a huge impact to be able to do that. And then, of course, we need folks on the day of the move to move the boxes and really help.
And go into that little girl's room and pack up some of the toys so she can have them in her new place.
Right.
Now, Shelter Movers is just brand new to Saskatchewan. We are hoping that it's up and running in the next couple of months.
Yes.
This is desperately needed here in this province, especially in Regina.
Yeah, we're hearing from our referral partners, can we do this next week?
Right.
They're ready.
Yeah.
And it's a long time coming. And again, they're doing this work off the side of their desk with whatever truck they have available in the shadows of the night. And so we want to do this in a organized, consistent, safe way where it gives the women the power back. And so our referral partners are, Regina Family Services, Sophia House, the Wish Safe House, and these are all places that are serving women leaving violence. And they're ready for us to start up. And we'll be doing moves, I would say 2 months from now. So we're recruiting volunteers right now. You can go to sheltermovers.com where it shows all the different roles. It talks about what the time commitment and skills set is needed for each role.
April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. I do have an ask. I would like you to click the link in the show notes or go to sheltermovers.com and take a look and consider, is it possible for you to give up a couple hours a month? What can you do to support this? Because it is desperately needed and it's making a difference. Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing Shelter Movers with us today, and thanks for doing the work that you do.
Thank you for having me. It means a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you for your kindness as well.
Thanks for listening to the Families Matter Most podcast with Jen Dean. Book a free strategy call today and get the tools and tips you need to be a more calm and confident parent. For more podcasts, online courses, or just to get more information, visit familiesmattermost.com.